what happens.
Things happen.
This is what happens, you know. So
Do you want to know about some of the fun things that were said to us by
Well,
some people?
yeah,
yeah,
while you were gone, we were a bit surprised the police were okay. So we noticed you mentioned, yeah. So we noticed you mentioned the owners or the management came out to tell us about what their reaction was
Okay,
from
well,
the story house.
so we'd let the police know that we were going to be there just as a courtesy.
hmm
So they just did a stroll by, just probably keeping an eye on things, making sure no one was having any aggro. The manager, as soon as she saw Simon arrive, she came straight out, and she was the same one who evicted us last time. So
Uh,
she really aggressively said to him, "You can't stand there. You know, you need to
well, in a
move away."
public space.
Well, it was a public space, but she was trying to argue that the railings and the plants and the little tiny bit of paving next to the plants was their own property. But the
rather than
thing,
arguing about the point of why you're there and the damage it does.
yeah,
Yeah,
No,
wow.
I
the
get it.
thing, the thing is because he's a planning consultant, he understands about ownership of buildings and things like
Yeah.
that. So he just said, "Well, this is this building's owned by Cheshire West and Chester, and I'm actually not part of the protest. I'm here as a councillor observing the protest." And he had his badge on. He said, "So I'm not. I'm going to stay put. I'm staying where I am."
Ah, fair play to him, yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough.
And then she said, "Well, you and Mandy Clare are still evicted. You're both still barred. You know, like, like." And then she disappeared.
Oh,
I have power. I have power over this space.
oh,
And I
I want to
will
be barred
use
too.
it.
I
I
need to get
know.
myself barred from the
I'm
story house.
actually
John, should
quite
we go down
proud.
the weekend?
Yeah, we would get a badge that says, I was barred from the story house.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, she then was inside the foyer the whole time, welcoming people in, and she was saying to them, "Welcome, welcome, come on in. Are you safe? Are you all right?"
Oh,
You know,
God. From the
like,
bad,
oh
nasty people outside.
God, the gaslighting that goes on with these people, it's
It's
like another
incredible.
level. Yeah. Oh.
So you got a little bit of harassment, but nothing that you couldn't actually handle.
No, she said to him she was going to call the police.
And the police would have gone, yeah, who's that? Story
But,
house? And,
you know,
uh, uh,
because she didn't like where he was standing, but they
Oh.
didn't bother us about that. We
you should
had,
have stood like this and just see what she, you know, I don't like the way you're standing. Okay, well, try this.
Who gives these people a right to tell you where you can and can't stand and what you can and can't say and where you can and can't go and what you can and can't do? Oh, I
I,
can't stand it.
I
Don't tell
think the
me what to do.
reactions from people when people are aggressive or they go over the top, I think that tells you they're in a panic. Someone's
Mm.
outside telling the truth, and they're not expecting that to happen. They're expecting to just be able to do whatever they want, and no one dare comment on it, because obviously those of us who have been commenting about this have been threatened with. I mean, I've had it online as well since we attended this event. "Oh, I'm sure your boss will be very interested to hear about what you're doing." You know, those kinds of threats, really
They're
nasty.
idiots. They're idiots because it's out now. I mean, look at what Trump has done in the States. That's it. All that stuff. DEI. It's finished. So whatever's happening there,
I wouldn't be so sure it's
it
finished.
is. It's
right
finished.
away. Well,
Oh no, I've heard. I had a phone call. I had a phone call from somebody in the States, and they said that all their people walked out of this government office building. They walked out, and when they walked out, the door was locked after them and said, "You haven't got a job. Bye."
I mean, this is it's so encouraging, and we can only hope that longer term that's, but for us here, I mean, the media don't. So, for example, we've had this absolute witch trial of a employment tribunal going on the last couple of days, and it's got another couple of days to run, of a nurse in Fife who's she's taken the NHS in Fife to a tribunal. She worked in A&E. And there was a doctor who had claimed that they were now a woman, and they'd been given permission by that NHS trust to use the female nurses' changing rooms and toilets. So this woman, who's had a history of male, like something's happened to her in the past, we don't know what, And she was also menstruating. So she was in a mess and she needed to wash her hands. And this guy is getting undressed, you know, in the female changing rooms. And she said to him that she felt uncomfortable. And he said, I've got as much right to be in here as you have. If you've got a problem with it, there's a procedure. Off you go, kind of thing. So she was then not let go, but she was put on paid leave and then suspended, I think, by the NHS Trust there in Fife. And so she's now taking them to a tribunal for indirect discrimination, sexual misconduct, or whatever, a few different things. And this is being heard at the minute. Now, GB News is absolutely amazing, or has been amazing, at covering things to do with sort of, you know, the annihilation of women's rights and the puberty blockers side of this as well. But I've noticed that their headlines and the things that they're highlighting on their Twitter, that it's everything but. They're highlighting everything but. And yet this, to me, is like, it affects all women in this country. This is a nurse in A&E, one of the hardest, most demanding jobs you can do. It's a real vocation.
Oh, yeah.
Unsociable hours. You have to put up with all sorts of grief and unpleasantness. And there she is. And that's how the NHS has treated her. It's an absolute disgrace. And then she's being put through this witch trial where they're trying to, the prosecution are trying to make her feel guilty about undermining the dignity of this man. They tried to hide it to make sure that it was heard they applied to have it heard secretly so that his identity wouldn't be known and no one would know about the case and what's happening. And the reason for it is because as soon as you shine any light on it, or as soon as you have any kind of a meaningful conversation, any of these people are forced to have a meaningful conversation with the light shone on it. Yep. It's immediately apparent they haven't got a clue what they're talking about. They haven't thought anything through in any depth. They've got absolutely no respect. They don't regard women or women's rights as human rights. They don't care about us at all.
It is coming, Mandy. I mean, believe it or not, it is coming. You know, they've got rid of it all over there, and there's no him, they, thou, whatever it is. You know, all those pronouns gone in every government office. Now, private businesses, you know, they are still free to choose to do what they're going to do, but he's actually going to jump on that as well. You know, that is coming, and because otherwise he would be accused of stamping on the First Amendment, you know, your right to your opinion and your lifestyle and other things. But I think he's actually getting there. So what I don't understand is when the whole of the West, the rest of the West, do you like that, Mark? They're changing, right? This country is doubling down. It's actually going worse in certain areas. And, you know, I sincerely hope that Trump does actually bring in tariffs and force Starmer to do the right thing. I mean, he is